Picture this. You get paid on Friday. You feel relief for about 6 minutes. Then the rent leaves your account, and suddenly your paycheck looks like a joke the system told with a straight face. You did what they said. You worked. You stayed responsible. You avoided stupid risks. You did not buy a yacht. You bought groceries. Very reckless, apparently. This is the trap. People think rent is just another bill. It is not. It is a financial predator with paperwork. It shows up every month. It takes the biggest piece, and it leaves just enough behind to keep you functional. Not comfortable, not secure, just functional. That is how the middle class starts breaking, not with one dramatic collapse, with a monthly withdrawal. At first, it looks manageable. You adjust, you cut a few things, you eat out less, you cancel something, you say you are being disciplined. Then rent goes up again. And that is where the story changes. Because the problem is not just that housing is expensive. The problem is that rent rises like you are getting promoted every year, while your actual salary moves like it is in a coma. So now more of your income goes to staying in place, not moving forward, not building wealth, not buying time, just staying in place. That is a rotten deal. A healthy middle-class life needs margin, a little room, breathing space, the ability to save, to plan, to recover from bad luck without falling through the floor. Rent kills margin first, and once margin dies, everything else starts limping. Quick reality check. When too much of your income goes to rent, every other part of life becomes fragile. One car repair matters too much. One medical bill hits too hard. One missed week of work turns into a private panic attack with a spreadsheet. This is not just about math. It is about pressure, because pressure changes behavior. When rent is always looming, people do not think long-term. They think survival. They choose the cheaper place, the longer commute, the second job, the smaller life. They delay the dentist. They ignore the back pain. They postpone rest. They stop replacing things that are breaking, including themselves. And here comes the elegant little cruelty of it all. Rent does not build ownership. It builds endurance. You can pay for 10 years and own nothing except stress habits and a deeper understanding of how drywall sounds when your upstairs neighbor has insomnia. That is why this feels so demoralizing. A mortgage is expensive too, but at least the pain point's somewhere. Rent just evaporates. Every month your labor turns into temporary permission to exist indoors. That is not stability. That is subscription-based survival. And the middle class cannot survive on survival mode forever. Because the old middle class formula was simple. Work steadily, pay your bills, save something, buy a home, build equity, gain security over time. Rent breaks that ladder in the middle. You can still climb. You just never get higher. Because the money that used to become savings now becomes rent. The savings that used to become a down payment never appear. The down payment that never appears becomes more years of renting. And more years of renting means more exposure to rising housing costs. Round and round it goes. A perfect loop, very efficient. For everyone except the person paying for it. Pay attention here. This is where rent stops being a housing issue and becomes a class issue. The middle class is not just defined by income. It is defined by control. Control over where you live. Control over your future, control over how much of your effort turns into actual progress. Rent erodes that control, slowly at first, then all at once. You cannot save enough, so you cannot buy. Because you cannot buy, you keep renting. Because you keep renting, you stay exposed to increases. Because you stay exposed, saving gets even harder. That is not bad budgeting. That is structural entrapment. And yet people still get lectured. Make coffee at home, cut streaming, stop ordering takeout. Yes, of course, because the real reason you cannot save for a home is clearly the occasional sandwich, not the rent that eats half your income before the month even begins. This is the social damage rent causes. It delays adulthood without asking permission. People stay with roommates longer. They delay marriage. They delay kids. They delay moving to better jobs because relocation costs too much. They stay in bad apartments, bad neighborhoods, bad relationships, sometimes bad jobs, because financial pressure makes escape expensive. That part matters. When housing becomes unstable, people become cautious in all the wrong ways. They stop taking productive risks. They stop imagining bigger futures. They become more obedient to circumstances. That is how a whole class gets quieter. Then comes the mental cost. This is the part people underestimate because you cannot photograph it. Long-term rent stress changes the mind. It makes people irritable, tired, distracted, more ashamed than they should be. It creates a permanent background hum of insecurity. even during good weeks, even during birthdays, even during promotions, because deep down they know one thing: no matter how hard they work, the floor beneath them does not feel solid. That does something to a person. It makes success feel fake. It makes effort feel delayed. It makes the future feel rented too. And once that feeling settles in, people start performing stability instead of living it. They keep the car clean. They smile at work. They post normal things. They say they are busy. They say the market is crazy right now. They say maybe next year. But inside, many of them are doing a very specific kind of grieving. They are grieving the life they thought responsible behavior would buy. A place of their own, a little peace, a little leverage, a little proof that discipline still matters. Instead, they get annual increases and a leasing office email written like a hostage note with branding. And there is a wider consequence here. When rent crushes the middle class, society becomes flatter at the bottom and sharper at the top. More people work just to maintain access. Fewer people accumulate anything real. Ownership concentrates. Mobility shrinks. Neighborhoods harden into price filters. Families form later. Birth rates fall. Resentment rises. Trust declines. Because once enough people realize they are not building a life, just funding one temporarily, the social contract starts looking less like a promise and more like a prank. And that is the darkest part. Rent does not just drain bank accounts. It trains people to accept instability as normal, to expect less, to plan shorter, to dream smaller, to confuse constant pressure with adulthood. But adulthood was never supposed to mean this. It was supposed to mean growing control, growing safety, growing freedom, not paying more every year for less certainty. So why is rent breaking the middle class? Because it takes the one thing the middle class cannot survive without: margin. Without margin, there is no saving. Without saving, there is no ownership. Without ownership, there is no cushion. Without cushion, one bad season becomes a permanent setback. And when that happens to millions of people at once, you do not just get a housing problem. You get a country full of workers who look stable from a distance and feel economically hunted up close. That is not a glitch. That is a warning. If rent keeps rising faster than security, the middle class does not disappear in one loud collapse. It dissolves quietly. Direct deposit by direct deposit, lease by lease, excuse by excuse. Until one day people realize they were never falling behind. They were being slowly priced out of the life they were told they had already earned. So here is the blunt ending. When shelter becomes a machine for extracting stability, the middle class is not being pressured, it is being dismantled. And now I want to ask you this. How much of your monthly income is rent taking from you? And at what point does that stop being normal and start feeling like economic suffocation?